This is Arts Alive. I'm Lynda Phillippi. My guest today is Greg Macy of Macy Enterprises. And I have to tell you that I probably first met him when he was in junior college. It was a long time ago, but we've all moved on in new careers. And so, Greg, I understand now that you are designing and manufacturing shoes.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really fascinated by that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Actually, our kind of shared history with Evergreen is kind of how this all came out of. One of my mentors there in marketing at the helicopters was actually an ex-Nike guy.
Oh.
And we went to lunch and he's like, "You draw all the time. Like, what are you going to do with that?" And I was like, "I don't know." It's like, "Is that a thing?" He's like, "Yeah, you can actually, it's a career path." I'm like, "Really?"
Somebody will pay you to do this.
Yeah, which nobody had ever told me in like high school, even junior college. Like I was on a finance track. I was going to go to Linfield, study finance, do that whole rigmarole.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, long story short, he got me a meeting with the Olympic director at Nike. Oh. And going to Nike is like getting the golden ticket in Willy Wonka, and you're just like, what is this?
Yeah.
And so the guy there was like, well, you study industrial design, yada yada. So I started out industrial design. It was very different from what was written like on the marketing brochure.
Sure.
So I ended up taking a little sabbatical, worked in like digital printing, and then had kind of a fortuitous kind of thing that brought me back into design, like full-on design, working with car design, like custom car design.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of a lot more of what I do right now is custom car design and hot rods. But anyway, that process, it dovetailed with the person I met at Nike, because they had taught me, when you design, like, don't look at what you're designing. So if you're designing shoes, don't look at shoes. Look at everything else in the world, culturally, arts, history, whatnot. So when I was designing this car project, we're kind of stuck. The builder he had ideas, but he didn't know what he wanted. So it's kind of up to me. And so I remember the words of the Nike designers, like, look at something else. So I started looking at fashion, like, haute couture and really avant-garde fashion. Mm-hmm. And from there, I got ideas for, like, the body of the car and, like, the sculpture and everything.
Okay, yeah.
So that kind of, at the time I was also working with a property manager, and I had the same conversation. It was like, you're not supposed to be doing this. Like, you're obviously a designer, you're creative. And I was like, okay. So I went back to school and spent 5 years getting a fashion degree that merged into footwear, which in Portland, because I went to school in Portland, like you have all these Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, new companies like Lululemon are moving in there. Like everybody that's in footwear, especially athletic, is in Portland. So it was a great kind of breeding ground to learn stuff. And I got to like mentor under, for instance, the person who, he's now like one of the assistants to Kanye West, who, must be an interesting job for him, but he's one of these guys that like literally looks at a shoe drawing and knows how to put together.
Okay.
So that's the person I mentored under, which is kind of where I learned some of this stuff.
Okay.
And so for like me, like I've never went like the formal like art training. Everything was more, art is a form of communication to get your technical ideas across.
Sure.
But in school, like for instance, one of our teachers was like the director was like a former printmaker, and she taught us kind of the idea of like, everything that's inspiration, just put it in your book. Draw over it, scribble over it, cut it out, paste it in there, make it like your scrapbook for life.
Sure.
And
like your vision board.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's a vision board that you like literally just work with all the time.
That you carry around with you. And I can see that yours is very well used, well thumbed, well filled.
Yeah.
So this is like a sort of a Bible of sorts for you.
Yeah, I mean this is about 1 year's worth of work.
Wow, that's incredible.
Everything from like development for a client work in the automotive to also just playtime. It's just one thing I've had to learn is, especially since I got out of school, is like make time to play.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
you know what? This is interesting. I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and what they were talking about was great ideas don't come when you're sitting there going, I need a great idea.
Yeah.
I need a great idea. Great ideas come when you're mowing the lawn, taking a shower, playing the piano, doing anything else. And that because it's all about relaxing.
Yeah.
When you relax, you open your mind, and when your mind is open, inspiration and intuition can flow. So yeah.
Which was the great thing about art school is like, you don't have any commercial realities. It's just like, make it to make it. Like
Make
really,
it fabulous.
Yeah, and like, watch movies, go to shows, like, go on trips, get inspired, and then come back and just pour that all into your product that you're creating.
Right.
And so like, I guess like for this is more of a technical project that I worked on that got almost to the point of prototyping, and then it was a pandemic project, which pandemic was an interesting time to design anything.
Sure.
But this kind of gives you an idea of like the shoe design process. So this is a last, which is like every shoe is built around one of these. So if it's like, say, an Italian, like say like Gucci or something, it's going to be very slim, pointed, with high heels. They create the shape of however high you want the heel to be. But this is, for anybody who's like a sneakerhead, this is a Jordan Last. So Michael Jordan, this is based on his first shoe, or his first shoe is built off this Last.
Okay.
So the person I was working with wanted to like use this because it was universally known. So he got these on eBay. You're not supposed to, but got one. Nike and those people don't let these out very often, but somehow they leak, and if you're lucky, you buy one. So from this, like you usually start with the Last, you tape it up. Sometimes you like go straight to designing on one of these, which is kind of this process. But more my process is going between the sketchbook, working out ideas, looking at materials, looking at colorways. And then when I get to the point where like I'm almost on the cusp of I think it's finished, but I don't know, then designers, including myself, will like take the Last, tape it up, or just start pinning materials in this case. So for like this case, like I know this front portion is going to be knit, then there's like a leather saddle. The idea of this is almost like a men's, like a mule shoe.
Okay.
But what's the word, like it can change its kind of the way it is. So it has laces, but one thing like with this I wanted to test was like a strap that was magnetic. So basically you could tighten it through the laces, or you could just use this almost like elastic strap.
Sure.
So for the person I was working with, like I basically mocked this up to show like, well, these are how the magnetic attachments would work. And they're like the idea is that when you're not wearing it super tight, they can magnet it well.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. That they can just kind of hang off the back, which is kind of like an old sneakerhead thing.
Sure.
And so this is a way of kind of proofing the concept. And then if it looks good, then you go back to the sketching process, which usually then entails like computer-aided stuff.
So let me ask you a question. From the time that whether you're doing this as sort of as a freelance project or given a commission, what's the typical amount of time between somebody saying, I need a shoe, and you saying, here it is, usually?
So I can go back to actually right before like 2019, I was with a startup in Portland working part-time, but they were starting like a clothing and shoe company. So the founder gave me basically a rough like brief, which was like say in June of 2019. By like August, I had this level plus computer-aided sketches.
Okay, so
with colorways.
within a couple months.
Yeah, and that's just working part-time. If you're like full-time in a studio, it accelerates much faster.
So they might be looking at a turnaround time of like a month or less, something like that.
And then they go into prototypes. So this, but like much more refined with like actual soles printed out, because you can like 3D print a lot of stuff now.
And then looking at it maybe like in different sizes, different widths.
Yeah.
How does it, like test drive it on different feet and see how it works, something like that.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard about the company called Fashion Next?
Vaguely.
They just did a big, event, I guess, the first weekend in October, and I was out of town, I wanted to go.
Okay.
But the guy came and spoke to our networking group, and what he told us is that Oregon is the #1 manufacturer of apparel and footwear in the country.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, not that Oregon is #1, that it's our #1 industry.
Yeah.
Of apparel and footwear. is
Yeah.
our number one, which is interesting
Yeah.
because you think of all the things that Oregon's known for, all the fruits and vegetables
Yeah.
and wine, but those are not manufacturing. So
Yeah.
things that we manufacture.
Yeah, and a
apparel
lot
and
of it is
footwear.
like the outdoor industry too,
Right.
especially like Keene. You know,
Right.
Keene basically grew up around here.
Yeah.
That company was born from the ethos of Oregon sustainability, environmental, friendly footwear and whatnot.
And so it's a very supportive environment
Yeah.
for people like yourself, like young designers,
Yeah.
up and coming designers.
Right.
Because and one of the things that this guy was talking about was the fact that so many times if there's going to be a show, you're required to fund yourself to get there. But he's
Yeah.
got. In fact, I'm going to make sure that I connect you with
Yeah.
that person because it's really all about giving people that are up and coming in the
Yeah.
industry an opportunity to get more exposure, maybe on a wider stage.
Yeah.
That's
I
interesting.
I think that was the same outfit because my school, Art Institute, I think they dovetailed their like fashion shows. like the
Very,
degree.
very likely.
Yeah,
very
yeah.
likely. So,
Yeah.
so what's next for you? What's coming up for you?
Well, I've done more car design stuff recently. Like
Uh-huh.
the pandemic was an interesting time to do shoe design. Like this project was one that got almost to prototype stage. We were talking with a company in LA to white label it, and supply chains and everything. It was kind of
And then everybody just went to Uggs.
yeah.
Socks
yeah.
and Uggs
Yeah,
for 2 years.
the footwear industry, I'm kind of a little bit on like the ropes right now, just watching to see what happens, but still just honing.
Sure.
I'm doing a lot more automotive stuff with like hot rod shops,
Okay.
especially. In fact, next week I'm going to like a big trade show for automotive stuff. But ultimately, like long term with the shoes, like I want to have my own label.
Okay.
Like the dream is to have an atelier where we make low volume shoes upstairs and custom cars below. Like,
Okay. So when
like
you're
a dome.
thinking of the atelier, you're thinking more of high end. Like
Yeah,
definitely
and
high
low
end
volume.
fashion,
And
sort of bespoke,
Yeah.
made to order, or almost
yeah,
really exclusive
yeah.
type
Because
thing.
like one thing that I studied kind of like went a lot of time with like pandemic and everything is looking at traditional footwear. And what I found is like, everybody's talking about sustainability with footwear and everything. What I found like the most sustainable footwear is something that can be crafted to last a long time and also be resold, recrafted.
Absolutely.
Something where if your sole wears out, you can easily take it to a cobbler, which is its own industry that needs to be supported.
Well, you know what? And it's true that you can spend, and you might spend $300
Yeah.
for this pair of shoes, but you will literally have it the rest of your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Because you will keep modifying it and
Yeah.
doing what you need to do, but essentially that is your shoe.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's a
Yeah.
fabulous idea. I love it.
Yeah, and the idea of like slow fashion versus fast fashion.
Right. Rather than trendy.
Yeah.
It's like, what is elegant, timeless, and
Yeah.
somebody can
Yeah.
wear season in, season out that will always be
Yeah.
stylish.
Yeah, and then if you can mix it with technologies like 3D printing to fast track it.
Sure. Well, that's wonderful. So do you have anything coming up or anything online we might want to take a peek at?
Well, online right now I'm doing Inktober on my Instagram.
Okay.
So Inktober, if anybody doesn't know, or Sketchtober is like every month, every day of October you make a new sketch.
Okay.
So that's been doing a lot of stuff with that just to like get ideas churning and again playtime, practice, and
Okay.
actually gotten good ideas just from the play, which it all goes into the catalog. You
Sure.
know?
I mean, everything that you do informs your design,
Yeah.
feeds your mind. So we'll make sure that your link to your Instagram is
Yeah.
in the notes for the show.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to say thank you very much for being here
thank you.
today. And it's been wonderful to catch up with you
Yeah.
after all these
For
years.
sure.
I'm really glad to see you and see that you're doing so well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That went fast.
That was great.